objective number 1, Cikgu, how to respond students' answers reflectively. All right, macam mana? First objective. All right, I will move on. Yep. Yeah, I have promised habis kita will spell out to habis kita all the expectations in band 5. Tapi cikgu, for this training, normally I will always divide sessions to at least 2 or 3 objectives. So for objective number 1, Cikgu, we'll be discovering on this band 1, band 2, and band 3, Cikgu. How do you respond to your students' answers reflectively? So kita ni kan memahamkan arah band 1, band 2 sama band 3 and D3, Cikgu. And then we move on to the objective number 2 and objective number 3 for band 4 and band 5, inshallah. Okay, so how do you respond to students' answers, Cikgu? We make sure that when we respond to our students' answers, it encourages them to think, Cikgu. Dan jangan kita ni anggap when we ask question to one particular student in the class, we will respond to them individually saja. Indah, Cikgu. We take advantage of the situation, Cikgu. Memang kita ni tanya soalan, maybe we target the student to answer our question. But we make sure when we respond to that student, Cikgu, everyone is engaged in the lesson. Everyone knows the question and everyone knows the answer given by his or by their friends. And then how do you respond? Your responses, Cikgu, is not primarily focused to that one particular student who answered your question. Indah, your responses will be for your responsibility is to make sure that everyone in your class is engaged to your response atau Cikgu. Macam mana tu? Macam mana tu kan membuat kan deliver skill macam mana tu dalam kelas. Alright, let me make this straight again, Cikgu. When you ask a question to one particular student, ataupun if you ask a question to a student who works in pairs, or if you respond to a student working in one small group atau Cikgu, and you want to give responses, make sure that your responses atau is not just for a particular group of people, students. In that, you are addressing, you want everyone to be engaged with your response atau. Okay, I will show you some examples later. No, but one thing for sure is you want to encourage them to think. Berfikir, bukan yang macam janji menanya saja, Cikgu, janji menanya. Okay? Now, when we respond to our students' answers, Cikgu, macam tadi, kita ni merespon, kita ni ketawakannya, ataupun kita ni dengan ni mengangkat dia, ataupun kita sampai telefon ambulans dia dan sebagainya. Pasal macam giving responses to students in classrooms, Cikgu, during our lessons. We may have responded correctly, all right? Or we may have responded them incorrectly. Contoh, if you provide correct responses, Cikgu, it will foster more engagement sama more students thinking, Cikgu, and students will participate in our class discussion. Tapi if we have responded them incorrectly, ada tiap anak-anak takut kan bercakap dalam kelas kita ni. Takut dia membagi idenya dan sebagainya juga, because takut gue karang salah, karang Cikgu mereka aku kalau salah, bla bla bla. So I just want to categorize this, Cikgu, correct responses and incorrect responses. All right, because the next slide saya bagi kita all the possible responses that you can provide to your students answers, Cikgu, from 1 until 10. So this is just an individual round, Cikgu. You may record this somewhere, but you don't necessarily answer me in the chat box. Hindi perlu, Cikgu, but you may record this somewhere. Okay, I'll give you like 1 minute. How do you respond to your students' answers, Cikgu? Do you dismiss their answers? Do you seek for clarification when you respond to them? Do you give opportunities for students to elaborate their answers, or you choose to ignore their answers, number 4? Ataupun kalau number 5 ini, Cikgu, when you respond to them, do you challenge them? Ataupun do you provide connection? Or when you respond to them and their answer is wrong, do you provide them the answer? Ataupun do you give them irrelevant praise? Tentu sikit muji. Tapi nya indah dah halat tuju cikgu, kenapa kita ni memuji itu? Do you criticize your students cikgu when you respond, or you give opportunity for your students to reflect? All right. Yeah, I will give you another 15 seconds perhaps, because this the next slide will be some explanation on all these responses cikgu. All right, because I need baru objective number 1 cikgu. I just try my best to go as quickly as possible because we want to go to band 5 atau cikgu arah objective number 3 sekarang. All right, so ada orang responding to this question, but it's okay. Thank you very much cikgu Nurul Huda. And okay, let me move on to my next slide. Okay, because next slide nanti sekarang I categorize them cikgu. I categorize them, yang mana satu yang incorrect responses dan yang mana satu yang correct responses. All right, next slide. Okay, the incorrect responses cikgu. Salah kau atau baru pun kanak-kanak kan buka mulut menjawab, no, your answer is wrong. You dismiss them. That's it. Makti ka kanak-kanak, hindi lagi mo kanak-kanak bercakap. Because kita ni sudah menakan, itu salah. Alright, so depends whether you're lucky or not. Otherwise, classmate-nya pun hindi lagi berani bercakap tu cikgu if we dismiss a student's answer. Alright, ataupun teruk jawapan mo to, macam that's a silly answer, macam ani-ani, kenapa kau pikir macam tu, blah blah blah. So we are being overly critical to their response cikgu. So again, hindi lagi kanak-kanak mo bercakap tu cikgu kalau kita ni merespon macam tu. Alright, especially kalau jawapan orang salah bani cikgu. Kalau jawapan orang tepat, okay, you may want to praise them macam, okay, alright, thank you very much, sit down. But then what more can you do cikgu? Hatta jawapan yang tepat cikgu. Kalau jawapan salah, memang kita ni mesti ada skill macam mana akan merespon. Hatta jawapan tepat cikgu, macam mana kita ni merespon. Even though your students give you correct answers, how do you respond to that situation cikgu? Do you just praise them? Okay, well done. Thank you very much. Sit down. Ada caranya lain lagi cikgu. Okay, let me go through this. We cannot ignore our students' answers cikgu. Padahal melihat tu selagi ada orang angkat tangan tu cikgu, selagi itu layan tu cikgu, because diorang akan menjawab soalan kita ni. So jangan tidak dilayan cikgu. Well, if their answer is incorrect, bukannya kita ni kan, okay, terus cakap, salah tu jawapanmu, jawapan ni sebenarnya cuma ni. Sebenarnya that's an incorrect response cikgu. Okay, I will offer habis kita alternatives to these incorrect responses sekarang sebelah yang arah tik-tik tu juga. Okay, irrelevant praise artinya irrelevant praise, sikit-sikit, well done saja sikit-sikit, pandai, thank you very much, jawapan lurus jawapanmu, duduk, blah blah blah. So sometimes it's irrelevant cikgu. So alternatively cikgu, kalau kanak-kanak kita ni menjawab soalan kita ni dalam kelas, try to refrain yourself. Tahan, jangan cakap cikgu. Okay, itu yang pertama tu cikgu, nasihat saya, tahan. Kenapa mesti menahan? Because you can do so many other things. Alright, yang pertama, you may want to respond macam mana? Okay, ini biasa ni cikgu komen cikgu kita ni minta penerangan. Kenapa jawapannya macam itu? Alright, we seek for clarification, or we want them to elaborate more answers. Kadang-kadang jawapan dorang indah berapa masih kurang, and we seek for elaboration. Cuba, tell me more about your answer, your ideas. Boleh juga. Okay, and then how does this relate to the point that we discussed earlier? Macam buat connection cikgu. We may want to we may want to give opportunities for students to connect their ideas. Boleh juga. Okay, or we challenge cikgu. Kenapa? Why do they think of that? Macam kenapa jawapan dorang macam tu? And what evidence do they have to support their answer? Atau boleh juga macam tu cikgu. Okay, and it just because PD objective number 1 atau cikgu, kita ni mau responding to students' answers reflectively. And these are some possible responses that you can try out cikgu. Okay, mungkin Indah terus-terus kita mencuba band 4 sama band 5 esok juga, esok lusa ni. Tapi at least biasakan kita ni membuat responses yang biasa-biasa macam mana ni juga during lessons. Okay, giving opportunities for students to reflect juga. What made come to that conclusion? Bagi peluang, jangan bulat-bulat menerima jawapan penuntut walaupun hatta jawapannya itu tepat juga. Alright, kenapa pulangnya sampai ke jawapan macam itu? Ask for them to reflect juga. Okay, Cikgu Zulhisham is saying here, probing questions for them to clarify, explain more, etc. And Cikgu Suziana giving them chances to modify the answer. Boleh Cikgu, giving them 3 chances and then ask his or her friend to help answering. All right, so thank you very much for your responses, Cikgu. These are some possible responses that you can try out, Cikgu. Okay, kalau kita anda biasa membagi respons arah kanak-kanak pasal, kalau Andi dilihat di sini, Cikgu, kalau kita ni lihat arah this rubric, Cikgu, sikit-sikit yes and no saja, Cikgu. Okay, sikit-sikit, oh yeah, yes, duduk. Jawapanmu tepat. Atau no, your answer is wrong. That's right. Okay, kita ni bagi jawapan. Contoh, that is band 1. And then, boleh juga band 2, Cikgu, we seek for some explanation. Yes, if the answer is incorrect, we ask them to explain. Itu saya tadi yang bagi kita some responses itu Cikgu bagi peluang habis kita membuat barangan ni. Sama juga tu arah band 3 Cikgu, cuba kita lihat. Encourage students to explain the ideas or compare different answers. Artinya Cikgu kalau arah band 3 ini Cikgu, refrain yourself, tahan diri. Okay, ada student A menjawab soalan kita ni. Okay, suruh dia berdiri dulu, tak apa-apa. Okay, now let us invite another student. Kirakan, jemput lagi another student to answer the same question and then ask the whole students in your class to compare their answers juga. Biarkan tak durang yang sendiri bertokawan durang siapa jawapan sianu lebih tepat daripada jawapan sianu macam mana. Do you see that juga? It's not it doesn't necessarily that kita ni yang membagi kata putus satu Cikgu. That's how you make them think during your lesson, and that's how you make sure that your students are engaged amongst themselves, Cikgu. All right, so that is objective number 1. And then these are some notes for abis kita, Cikgu. I'm done with PD objective number 1, Cikgu. All right, I'm done with PD objective number 1. May I move on to PD objective number 2, please? May I proceed to objective number 2? Yep. All right. Thank you very much, Cikgu. All right. Objective number 2, Cikgu. Now, we are moving on to band 4 ni, Cikgu. Band 4, because rata-rata majority kita ni biasa sudah dapat band 3. But we want to achieve more. Macam mana, Cikgu? So for band 4 ni, Cikgu, we want to respond to students' answers by CAR. By CAR, atau akronimnya peluang tu Cikgu, and facilitate discussion between students. Apa maksud saya CARR tu Cikgu? Alright, apa maksud saya CARR? Now, objective number 2, to respond to students' answers by CAR and facilitate discussion between students. Again, saya akan minum sekejap, Cikgu. Can you just read band 4 tu dulu sekejap? All right. Okay. Now, band 4 ni Cikgu, di sini ya cakapnya, teachers use full range of strategies. Okay, apa strategiesnya Cikgu? Kita CAR ni Cikgu, comparing, adding to, reasoning, revoicing, and rephrasing. Kita saya akronimkan CAR, jadinya CARR. Their responses facilitate discussion between students. So, for this objective number 2 Cikgu, I will be sharing with habis kita apa maksudnya responding to students' answers by comparing, adding to, reasoning, revoicing, and rephrasing, ani Cikgu. So that's objective number 2 ya. So ani kita ni lari sudah dari band 1, 2, 3 ke 4. Alright. So bismillah. Comparing, Cikgu. When you compare students' answers, Cikgu, sudah saya tunjukkan habis kita tadi contohnya, Cikgu, masa arah objective number 1 juga. Always refrain yourself from deciding whether their answers is correct or incorrect. Jangan cikgu let our students decide for themselves and kita ni facilitate saja. Alright? So asking students to compare their ideas and methods. Contoh tadi saya panggil student A and then I invite another student B and then let them student A dulu bagi jawapan and then kita disuruh dorang puas, masih berdiri and then we invite another student, student B bagi jawapan and then kita ni as facilitator in the class invite all students to decide and then compare by comparing their friends' answers, whose response is yang lebih tepat ataupun yang betul. Alright? Masih belum start. Anda saya pasti tahu apa maksud Cikgu Siti Mariam ya. Alright. Comparing students' answers. But I have several examples di sini, Cikgu. When you compare students' answers, Cikgu, macam-macam. Kalau contrasting views ini, Cikgu, how does the solution differ from siamatnya? Siamat caranya macam mana? How is it different from your method? Okay. Cerita apa ni minta sebab lagi tu compare. Kalau si Zainab macam mana caranya tadi bla bla bla. Kalau kamu macam mana? You know. So kalau nyanyi lebih kurang macam Zainab cikgu, tapi kalau aku buat macam mana. It is so nice cikgu to learn from your students punya responses. Macam but that shows how dialogic your skills are in promoting and facilitating class discussion during lessons. All right. And which method is more effective? Yang jawapan orang ani atau macam mana? So I'm just giving you some examples juga. Okay, whether they agree or disagree, boleh jua, or otherwise analyzing outcomes. What's the difference between jawapan yang tadi kamu bagi ataupun dengan jawapan si Sarah tadi yang bagi. Alright, and then synthesizing ideas, combine your thoughts dengan si Yusuf tadi macam mana. So you these are just some examples that you can try out to go. So I have explained, I have reminded abis kita tadi. I'm going to give you so many skills this afternoon, and it's not like you are going to try all in one go, Chigo. Subhanallah. It took me years to master these skills juga. Macam sampai Ani pun masih lagi belajar. I have been exposed to these skills since 2017. Bayangkan tu 2017. Masih lagi belajar. Alright, so you may want to practice yang simple responses tadi saya bagi masa objective number 1 for this week and the following week. And then the following week lagi, okay, let me, Ani comparing, Ani saya suka cikgu, pasal senang apa cikgu. Macam we just invite one student and then another student, let us compare. You can, the first time when I practiced this cikgu, I was amazed with my students' responses because pasal barang Ani saya pernah buat. Kalau bisnis kita biasa sudah barangkali ya. But during my days, masa awal-awal kan exposekan skill Ani, I never gave the opportunity for my students to compare answers and cikgu. And then siok cikgu. Macam, tapinya cikgu, berani kanak-kanak bercakap atau cikgu. And it is so dialogic. Masya Allah, I appreciate that. And students also appreciate that we give them the opportunity to think, cikgu. Okay? And then, yang kedua cikgu, yang ada CARR, ni cikgu, adding to. Adding to itu artinya asking a student to say more. Either you ask that yang student yang kita tanya atau you ask him or her to add more responses, or you may want to invite his or her friends yang penuntut lain to add more to yang penuntut asal punya responses. Did you get me, cikgu? Ani biasa juga kita ni buat tu cikgu. Ani skill ani biasa kita ni buat. Kalau macam student atau especially kalau macam essay subjects. Walaupun maths cikgu, saya biasa membuat ani maths cikgu. When kalau saya tanya macam how do you solve kalau mathematics, how do you evaluate fractions? How do you evaluate mixed numbers? Suruh dorang explain step by step macam mana akan mencampur two to mix numbers, contoh. So kadang-kadang steps dorang ada kurang, and then invite other students to add some steps juga. So inviting other students to add more responses to that particular question that you asked during the session juga. And I will be giving abis kita some examples juga. Okay, can you give us more details? And these are some prompts pa cikgu saya share arah slides supaya indah mati akal bis kita memikirkan macam mana apa maksud cikgu yang tadi kalau macam adding to it what else can you add to that Maria? Can you explain further? Cuma tu. Alright, so I'm giving you several prompts ni cikgu supaya bis kita ada examples. Can you give some examples? Can you give another example to what si Zainab tadi mention apa semua? And you can also use this strategy cikgu to make the statement clearer to students in the classroom. Ask for clarification lagi, balik-balik ni clarification dia ni. And then again, can you tell us why you think that way, Fatima? And rasakan supaya kanak-kanak bagi more responses to that question juga. Okay, I'm giving you several suggestions. Okay, adding to artinya menambah lagi jawapan itu, menambah macam mana. And masa menambah itu juga, you may want to record their responses on the whiteboard juga, so you can keep track on their points atau juga. Kadang-kadang ada kanak-kanak visual kan juga, tidak semua audio jam dengar. Ada lagi yang kanak-kanak pangling lagi juga yang macam paham-paham juga kita itu juga yang bercakap pun mesti durang melihat apa yang kita ni buat baru tah durang memeduli kita ni juga. Alright, subhanallah. And now